The Zohar HaKadosh says there is a nation, and this nation has a prince in heaven. Every nation has a prince. This is what we call Sarosh el-Isav, the prince of Isav, and the prince of Ishmael, which means God created in His world those who take charge of the nations. Which means there is someone that that every nation has. One day, the prince of Ishmael came to God, and he said to him, God, it's not fair. You should also give something to the nation of Ishmael. I mean, I know they are donkeys, and I know they are, but you have to give them something, come on. They do Brit Milah, they do circumcision. So God says, all right, I'll give them something. I'm going to give them the merit to be in the land of Israel. Now remember, these words were written 2,000 years ago. Everybody testifies to that. There is no controversiality over this. He says that God said to the prince of Ishmael, because of what you said, even though the circumcision that they do is incorrect, nevertheless I will give them a merit because of that. What is the merit that I give them? They will be able to stay in the land of Israel all the time that my children are not there. You know, God has His calculation. He knew that we are going to get out from the land of Israel 2,000 years ago. We will be expelled and scattered all over the nations, and we will not be in the land of Israel for approximately 2,000 years. All this time, God said, I give permission to the people of Ismail to be there. When my people Israel will come back, the Zohar says, when my people Israel will come back to my land, then you should know this is the end of that time that I have extended to the people of Ishmael, the Muslims, the Arabs. That's it. They don't have any more merit to stay there. Not only that, the Zohar HaKadosh says, all this time that the Muslims or the people of Ishmael will be in the land of Israel, all these 2,000 years, the land will not yield at all, will remain barren. You know, if you remember 50, 60 years ago, if you went to take a stroll among the Arabs after the 6 Days War, you could not avoid asking a question, what happened to these people? These people were here all so many, hundreds of years, and they did not build anything. Where are the gardens? Where are the farms? Where are the buildings? Nothing. Hashem Yishmor. It's unbelievable. It's like whatever they touch in the land of Israel is dead. I remember in 1967, and before that, when we came to the land to Israel, we went to see. I mean, everything that is Arab was barren, nothing green except olive tree. And even the olive trees are powdered with dust, even today. Nothing else. And that doesn't mean they don't have fruits. They have delicious fruits. I mean, the land does yield fruits. But nothing that you could see in your eyes, nothing spectacular, nothing beautiful. And the Zohar HaKadosh says, all these years the land will not give them anything. But when my children will come back, as soon as they come back, the land will give them with tremendous abundance. That's what the Zohar HaKadosh said 2,000 years ago. You know, remember Israel 50 years ago? Is it the same Israel today? Wherever you go, you raise your eyes with admiration. Miami Beach everywhere. You go to Ashdod, it's Miami Beach. You go to Cholon, unbelievable. You see the beautiful fruits, you see the markets, you see the buildings. In 50 years, a whole America was built there. And you tell me the Zohar HaKadosh doesn't know what it's talking about? When the Zohar specifically tells us what will be in 2,000 years ago. Tell me the land of Israel does not belong to us? How can anybody think that this land does not belong to us? When this land is a living land, it knows its occupants. It knows its inhabitants. You think the land of Israel, by the way, our sages say that the land of Israel is alive. That's the only land that's alive, which means it can vomit people out. It did it to us. The Torah says, "Vayakeh ha'aretz et yoshveha," and the land vomited its us. people who do not practice the laws of the Torah and do not observe the Torah, usually they are vomited. Unless if you teach Torah outside Eretz Israel, you are not allowed to leave the land of Israel. If you did go out, it means perhaps the land doesn't want you. Do you know that? Did anybody think for 1 minute that the reason he's out of Israel is because the land refuses him? And that's why everybody has to speculate about himself. What can I tell you? Except if you go to teach Torah. That's the only comfort that I have. So you see, it's unbelievable. When the Zohar HaKadosh is telling me that as soon as my children will come back, the land will give them in such profusion, in such abundance, that is beyond description. When I see that 2,000 years that the Arabs were there, they didn't do anything. Nothing. And look what they do. And they still pretend to say that the land is there. It's not the land. It's not the land they are after. My friends, if you think that the Arabs are after the land of Israel, then you don't know what's going on. They are after the blood of the Jew. That's all that interests them. The jealousy is consuming them. It's killing them, mamash. But we have to know that Hashem is with us. And even though we do not deserve it so much, believe me. Even though, because unfortunately, even King David wrote in his book of Tehillim that the only reason why God gave us the land of Israel is so we will observe the mitzvot in it. Ba'avur tishmeru mitzvotai v'torotai, hallelujah. That's what it says in the. Why did I give you amal le'umim? I gave you the labor of the nations in your hands so that you will observe the Torah and mitzvot. So in Israel, those who do not, unfortunately, still the majority, does not keep the Torah and the mitzvot. So what do they expect? There is danger. But the land is ours. The lands cannot be anyone else's. It is ours. Because this land is a land that is full of life. And it recognizes its rightful inhabitants. When it had to be occupied by the others, by the foreigners, it did not yield anything. But as soon as it felt that its inhabitants are coming back, it gave. It gave. And all this is written in the Zohar HaKadosh. How can you expect me not to believe? When I read in the Zohar and I see things that we see today, I say, Ashrenu matov chelkenu manaim goradenu. How happy we are that we live in this generation. I'm not saying that this generation is perfect. It's the worst of all the generations. It's the most vicious of all the generations. But at the same time, it's the most meritorious, because this is the generation in which we are going to be able to see things even more than what we already saw. We saw tremendous things. And even Jews who don't keep the Torah, they know the truth. Unfortunately. Remember in the 6 Days War, even General Dayan, Moshe Dayan, after the 6 Days War, he immediately went to the Kotel HaMa'aravi, to the Wall of Lamentation, and he wrote a little piece of paper and he put it inside the stones. And he wrote that. When they checked what he wrote, he quoted the verse from the book of Tehillim. Ze hayom asa Hashem, nagila v'nismecha bo, me'et Hashem hayta zoti niflat be'enenu. This is only from God that is marvelous for us. That's what he wrote. So you see, he was not an observant Jew, and yet